Would you consider yourself a hardworking salesperson? Probably yes. Are you making the commissions you want to make? No. So clearly, hard work isn't enough. And so in today's video, I'm going to give you the exact breakdown of how you can go from a hardworking salesperson to a both hardworking but smart salesperson that knows what they should be doing which times of the day. As a salesperson, you are based on one thing and one thing only: how much you sell throughout the day. And so if every hour of the day you are deciding to work and sell, you are not maximizing at its full efficiency, it doesn't matter how good of a skill set you have, you're never going to be able to hit the full capacity and the full income potential you can, because you're capped by the one thing we all lack, which is time. And so in this video, I'm going to give you the exact SOP and formula you can put into place that resulted in me making over 100K a month in straight commission selling at 12% by the age of 18, and how I figured out not only what I should be doing every day, but what I should be doing every day and at what times in the day I should be doing them, based on a process and a formula, not just based on hard work. Okay, so this is behind the scenes, the plan of how you guys are gonna go about managing your diary. So here's the same SOP and the exact kind of formula of how across any company I've ever managed or been a part of as a salesperson or as a manager or as a VP, it doesn't matter what the role was. This is how I figured out what you should be doing. The thing about sales is this: just like anything, but especially sales, when you're a rep, you need to manage your time. Your time is how you're going to do everything. And so whether you're going to want to work 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, or 14 hours a day, it doesn't frankly matter if you're not making much money, because most people believe they're working an 8 to 10 hour day, but when you really figure out how many hours they're working, they're only really working half of that or a third of that. And so when I was selling, I used to work 14 hours a day on paper, but then when I really audited my schedule and I figured out how much I'm actually selling, I realized I was only working 5 hours. So in reality, it was a part-time job. When I started auditing what to do, when to do it, it changed how I looked at my diary and how I made my plan. And at the end of the day, I was able to work more with the same amount of hours, but I worked more efficiently. Okay, so I'm going to go both over an inbound and outbound. So whether you're a setter or closer, this will be applicable to both of you. Now, first thing you're going to do when you have your schedule, and there'll be a link down below to download this SOP. So if you guys want it, you guys are more than happy to create a copy of it for yourself, which is this. First thing you're going to want to do if you're doing inbound calls or you have any form of inbound bookings through your offer is you need to track up your show up rate, your no-show, your reschedule, show, no sale, sale. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to put in your data. Now, my recommendation is if you don't track your data, start, but track this data over a quarterly basis. So if you're first doing this right now, this is your first time ever doing something like this, look at your data over the past quarter. What was your show up rate on average? So 60% show up rate, let's pretend. My no-show rate was, let's say I had a 60% show up rate, okay? And then my no-show rate was 40% based on that metric, or let's say it was 30%. Okay, and then my reschedule rate was, let's say, 10%, as an example. And let's say on average, out of the 60% that showed up, 30% of them didn't buy, so or 70% of them didn't buy, so I have a 30% close rate. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to input your data. What do your percentages look like? Second thing you're going to do is you're going to figure out from what hours to what hours you're working. So a lot of times what ends up happening with sales reps is we have the feeling that we have to work a lot. And I don't think that's wrong. If you're going to make, let's say, 80 to 100,000 a month in commissions, you're probably going to have to work realistically 12 to 14 hours a day. But for most of you that are, let's say, at 5 or 10 or 15, and you're trying to, double your income or triple your income, it usually isn't a game of working more hours as much as it's working better at the hours you're given, number one, and number two, getting more efficient in terms of your skill set, right? So getting a better skill and getting better at organization is the easiest way to increase your income by 30 to 50%. If you're looking to increase your income by like quadruple, 5 times, 6 times, then yes, you will have to work more hours. But if that's not the goal, second step you're going to do is you're going to figure out what hours of the day are you actually working, right? So as an example, let's say you're somebody, you start your day at 8 a.m., like this rep, for example, and he's working on average from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? Those are the hours he works. What he needs to figure out is, okay, if these are the hours I'm working right now, what are the hours I'm missing? So if you're somebody that's going to work from 8 a.m. to, let's say, 7 p.m., then that means from 7 to 10, you're not taking any calls, and from 5 to 7, you're not taking calls. So anything outside of sales calls, admin, follow-ups, going to the gym, eating food, whatever other tasks outside of talking to people, because the only way you make money in sales is when you talk to people, period. And so what you want to be very clear on is any task that doesn't involve talking to people is done outside of these working hours. So when it comes to things like doing your admin, filling out your end of day forms, that should be an end of day task. You should not be doing that during the day, because during the day from this time to this time, you need to be selling if this is your schedule. Now, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., anything that is sales related where you're talking to a human being, that's what you focus on. Day to day, most salespeople context switch, right? You go from selling to then doing random follow-ups. You go from selling to doing sales training. You do random shit during the day, and then you wonder why you're not efficient. You cannot do random things throughout the day. Imagine going to the gym and you have 6 exercises. You do one exercise at 10 a.m., the other exercise at 12 p.m., the other exercise at 2 p.m. That's not how you build muscle, right? You do one thing at a time. Look at your schedule very similarly. If you're going to sell, which is majority of what your job is as a salesperson or setter, that should be what you focus on during these working hours, and any task or goal or thing that needs to get done outside of these hours, it either gets done in the morning from this time to this time, or it gets done at the end of the day. Okay, so first step is, what is your data? Second step is, what are the hours you're working? Third step, what you're gonna figure out over the course of the next 4 weeks is you're gonna get very clear on when is your no-show rate happen. So you're gonna color code it. Now the color coding here is this. Green stands for this showed up and bought. So neon green is showed up and he bought, or she bought. Dark green is they showed up but they didn't buy. So this is a no sale. Red is gonna be a cancellation, and then yellow is gonna be a reschedule. Okay, so whenever somebody, let's say, shows up, and let's say from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., this person canceled. Great, you're gonna track that as red. If let's pretend this person closed, great, you're gonna track that as neon green. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out the patterns between a few things. Number one is, when do I get the highest show up rate? First thing. Number two, when am I getting the highest sale ratio? There are specific times in the day you're probably selling more than others, and you need to figure out why. And so I'll give you one great example, okay? And this is going to sound super simple, but you have to start thinking about it this way. I used to start my calls on average at 6 a.m. in the morning. From 6 to 9 a.m. is when I made majority of my sales from like a unit standpoint, right? I was probably averaging, I sold a 15 to 18K offer. I was probably selling like 15Ks a day, but most of them, I would say 60% of those sales came in from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. And most of the times I didn't make a lot of sales was between usually midday from 12 to 2 p.m. And then I would usually make way more sales at the end of the day from 6 to 9 p.m. So because I knew that pattern, what I started doing midday was when I focused on outbound, because I could logistically look at my data and be like, you know what, man, from 11 to like 1 p.m., I don't really sell too much for whatever reason. And when I really thought about the reasoning, it's usually because I had lunch, my body was exhausted. And also I was doing calls from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. back to back 14 hours a day. So from 6 to 12, I was good. But then after that, from 12 to 2, I usually was mentally a bit foggy because I'd done 6 calls back to back. So I started blocking out 2 hours window to do outbound follow-ups, referrals, which gave me a bit of a break, which is why then from 2 onwards till 9 p.m. I was productive. And then from 6 to 9, I was even more productive from a sales standpoint. You got to start figuring out the patterns as a salesperson or as a manager on when does your team or you as an individual, when do you actually sell the most? When is the highest no-show rate? Let's pretend you manage a company right now, right? Or let's say you're a salesperson and you realize when you track this that, you know what, dude, 12 to 1 p.m., Pacific Standard Time, I have the highest no-show rate. Just block it off and don't take calls in that hour. In that hour, go on a walk. In that hour, make dials. In that hour, do your follow-ups. Most people are very unconscious on how they manage their time. Like, you just don't know where your time is going or how efficient your time is, so you don't know how to plan for it, okay? So what you're gonna do over 4 weeks, now why is it 4 weeks? Why isn't it 1 week? Because 1 week is not enough data to make a decision. That's another thing. Most managers and salespeople, setters or closers, you make decisions on a very limited amount of data. Imagine if when you were born, that from 0 to 5, you were functioning as a young adult, not even an adult, a young infant, right? From the ages of 0 to 5, and you were judged on what you were gonna become in the future. So from 0 to 5, if you weren't really smart, the government or the world would say, you know what, dude, fuck this guy. He's not gonna go to college, he'll be a laborer. Or this kid is really smart, he's good in school at 5, so we're gonna make him be a doctor. That wouldn't make any sense in society, would it? It'd be dumb, because I'm making a decision based on limited amount of years that guy has had or that gal has had to develop. But sales is no different. If you spend 1 week closing, how do you know what decision to make off of 1 week of data? And so the point is, you need to start making decisions over a long enough time horizon. Because over a long enough time horizon, like when I knew that I sold the most from 6 to 9 a.m., which on paper made sense because it was the morning, my mind was the most active, I knew that being an early riser, right? I'm a night owl, but I knew I couldn't be a night owl. I had to go to bed by 10 because I got to wake up by 5, be on calls by 6, but it's because I knew my data. And that wasn't over a week, that was over 2 to 3 months. Okay, so you're gonna track this over 4 weeks. And what you're gonna start trying to ask yourself is, what is the pattern? Meaning, when do you sell the most? What you should know as a salesperson or as a manager, when you sell the most or when your team sells the most, when is the highest no-show rate? Because if you're gonna do, let's say, team training, let's say you're a manager, you're gonna do team training. When should you be doing team training? When the no-show rate is the highest, when your salespeople are not making money. If you're a sales rep and you wanna know when you should take a lunch break, should you take a lunch break during an hour of the day where you make the most money? No, and it's like, well, Yash, how do I know? You gotta fucking track it. If you do not track when you're selling the most of, how do you know when you should be taking breaks, when you should be doing certain tasks? You don't. One of the things I talk a lot about is doing outbound as a rep, right? Every salesperson, setter, or closer, in my opinion, should be doing outbound. If you're not, it's dumb. And owners of companies should be giving an incentive on outbound. So that's another thing that's dumb, is usually owners want production to go higher, and outbound is a great way to do that, but usually you're not giving a higher commission to your reps to actually get them to perform and want to do more, which is why they never do it, right? Good behavior unrewarded doesn't usually continue. So as a salesperson, if you don't know when you're selling or when you're the most efficient, when you sell the most, you frankly don't know how to do your schedule. And so for most of you, the key to making more money is either sell something higher ticket, so get a better offer, or the second thing is I just need to work harder. And you're gonna get a cap. I probably capped out at 20 to 30 grand a month in commission by working hard. And I think here was the difference. While most of my colleagues got capped at 20 to 30 just like I was, but they stayed there via myself where I started growing, it's because I started intentionally really focusing on working smart. Okay, working hard is something you should be proud of as work ethic. Working hard can probably get you to 20 to 30 grand a month relatively comfortably. Good skill set, working hard. But if you're somebody and you want to double your income to 30 grand, you want to double your income to 50, you want to double your income to 100 grand, or whatever that target might be, and more importantly, you want to do that in a short time frame, you are not going to get there in a short time frame just by volume alone. Because even if you get there, you don't want to be in a position where you double your income and at the end of it, you're like, fuck man, I don't know how I'm going to do that same thing next month because I'm going to have to work even the same amount of hours and I feel burnt out after this month. So the key is you need to be smart. And to be smart, you got to know when to do what. You as a salesperson are based on one thing and one thing only, how much you sell. And how much you sell is in direct reflection of how much your time is worth. You got to figure out what to do when, which also means if you're somebody, and let's pretend you start your calls at 6 a.m. in the morning or 8 a.m. in the morning like I am, and you look at your diary and your data and you're like, you know what, dude, I don't, over the course of 4 weeks, 10% of my deals came in at the calls at 6 a.m. But if I was able to sleep an extra 30 minutes, I think I would be a lot more efficient. Then don't take calls at 6 a.m. Simple. If you're a sales manager and you don't know when you should be training your sales team, look at the data and be like, okay, sweet, they have a high no-show rate here, I'm gonna do a training here. Every time as a salesperson you wanna make more money, the first thing you gotta look at is your diary. How is your schedule set up? Okay, so just to re-clarify, what is your data? What's your show-up rate, no-show rate, reschedule, show, no sale rate, and what's your sale ratio, okay? Then, what are the hours in the day you're gonna be working? What's your local time? PST, CST, EST. The best time zone to sell in is PST or Europe time. Europe time is really good because usually you can sell from 2 p.m. Europe time, which is usually 6 a.m. PST time, till about 2 a.m. So if you're in Europe, you can work from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m., go to bed, wake up at 10, you got 4 hours to do whatever the fuck you wanna do. But if you were to tell me the one time zone that's the best to sell in, it is PST because your day starts off, like if I'm in PST and I start my day at 6 a.m., I can sell to people in EST. Okay, so you're gonna try to figure out your local time. What are the hours you're working? Over the course of 4 weeks, you really need to figure out what is your data telling you. By the end of these 4 weeks, there's a few questions you should be able to answer. What times of the day do I sell the most? What are the times? Main question you gotta figure out. What are the times of the day I sell the most? What times of the day do I sell the least? And why? Do you sell the least just like I was selling the least between 12 to 2 p.m. because you're mentally exhausted, which is not a bad thing, and maybe it's better we do outbound or follow-ups or another task? Like, why are we selling less in those hours? Third question, what times of the day do I have the highest no-show rate? Okay, and then what times of the day do I have the highest reschedule rate? These are the main questions you need to figure out by the end of these 4 weeks. 4 questions. When times of the day do I sell the most? What times of the day do I sell the least and why? Is it an energy thing? Is it my market? If I sell to single mothers, and let's pretend I sell to single moms and 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. is the highest no-show rate, no shit, because that's when people have to pick up their kids from school. So I probably shouldn't let my sales team, or if you're a rep, you probably shouldn't do calls from 3 to 4. You should probably do confirmations or follow-ups or outbound. You got to figure out what you're going to do in that hour. You don't want to just not work, but probably taking a sales call when it's 3 to 4 p.m. where mothers are rushing to pick up their kids from school isn't the best use of your time. Okay, so these are the 4 questions you want to figure out. Now, if you're doing outbound, same thing. Outbound is when you're going to figure out, first thing you're going to figure out is, unlike in inbound where you're tracking the data on like show up rate and whatnot, in outbound you're tracking pickup rate. Okay, so your KPI on outbound is really figuring out what does your pickup rate look like in order to result in more cash, more revenue, whatever the case might be. And so 1 to 5% pickup rate, we're going to say that's, even though that's industry average, we're going to say low. 6 to 10% is usually like that's average. 11 to 15% is good. 16 to 20% is great. Okay. And so what you're going to do, same thing as if you were a salesperson, but maybe you're a setter. And if you're a closer that does outbound, this is how you need to track it, which is this. What times during the day do I have the highest pickup rate? So a great way to do this is 2 ways. Number one is every time somebody picks up on a sheet of paper, or you can do it on a document, whatever's easier. I used to do it on a sheet of paper, is I would write a tally. So every time somebody picked up the phone, I would do a tally mark. And what I would do is every hour, so I would have 7 to 8 a.m., 8 to 9, and then I would do a tally where I'd go like this. And for every time somebody picked up, I would write it down on my paper or on my document where I'd be like, okay, from 8 to 9 a.m., I had, let's say, 6 people pick up. And then I would do a star for how many appointments I booked. So I might be like, and I booked 3 out of these appointments. 9 to 10 a.m., I only had 2 people pick up, and I booked 0 stars. So I'm not going to put 0 appointments were booked, so no stars. But 10 to 11, man, it was actually pretty good. I booked, I had like 8 people pick up, and I was able to book, 8 of them. So what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to figure out what times of the day do you have, one, the highest pickup rate, and second, the highest booking ratio. So if I'm running a setter department, or if I'm a setter myself, I need to figure out what times in the day am I able to get the most volume of pickups and sets, because then I know how to optimize it. Most salespeople, okay, and you included if you're a salesperson, you don't do outbound for usually 2 reasons. Number one is there's no incentive. So your offer or the owner of your company doesn't pay you more for doing outbound, which is why you only rely on inbound. That's the first thing, right? So if that's an issue, fix it. Second thing is the reason why you don't do it is you don't know when to do it. And so doing outbound to you is more of a chore rather than a task, because you don't see how you make money from it. And even if you make money from it, it seems too difficult to make money from because it's harder than inbound. And so the way you want to fix that is you got to figure out what times in the day do you make the most money. Because what if I told you, and what if we looked at your data and we realized that from 9 to 10 a.m. you have the highest no-show rate, but when you do outbound, on average you get 5 pickups, you book 2 appointments. So 2 times, let's say you work 6 days a week, you book 12 appointments a week. And on average, because it's outbound and you're a decent closer, out of 12 of those appointments, you're closing 4. And instead of getting paid 10% commission, you get paid 15. You start doing the math and realizing that you probably can make a lot more money. And again, that's a mechanism. So inbound is a mechanism, right? That's one way of making money. And then you have outbound. That's another way of making money. There's all these different ways of how you can make money. But you got to be able to track it and know what to do when, and not just be one lazy. Most people just don't work. Okay, so the issue with salespeople and managers and yada yada is the fact that most people aren't actually working. Like, you work a 10-hour day on paper, but in reality, you work 2 hours. Give you one great example. How many hours of a day do you think like a bartender actually works? So like bartenders, let's say they go to their job, right? Let's say they're on from 5 p.m. at night till 2 a.m. in the morning. Let's say they work at a club. How many hours are they probably actually working? How many drinks are they actually serving? Are a ton of people going out at 5 p.m.? Probably not. When do people really start going out? 11 p.m., 12 a.m. So that person is realistically probably doing most of their work, getting most of their tips, getting most of their sales for the company, for the organization from probably 11 to 2. So in reality, they're probably working 3 to 4 hours, but they're maximizing those 3 to 4 hours. So if that bartender wants to make more money, and let's pretend it's a college student that wants to make more, what should he or she do? Find another gig that between 5 to 9 p.m., their first shift, they can make just as much money at nighttime in that club. And so it's the same thing with salespeople, where it's like, if you know what to do when, then really it's just about discipline and having the skill set to go out there and do it. But if you're just trying to motivate yourself on pure hard work, you'll make money, because frankly, not a lot of people are willing to work hard. But working hard is just not enough. Going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, are you making the money you want to make? No. Okay, so clearly, hard work in itself is not enough. Okay, so the point is, what you're going to do, just to recap, is you're going to track how many times during the day, at what hour of the day is your pickup rate and your booking ratio. And then all you're going to do once you figure that out, right, and you're going to do this over week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So again, you're not going to do this over 1 week. Outbound is a little bit easier to figure out the data, just to be clear. So inbound is a bit harder because marketing is usually changing, and marketing goes through different ads and different sequences, on a week-to-week basis. Like, marketing's always changing. Ads are always changing. Creatives are always changing. Outbound, it's really easy to make decisions from a data standpoint on outbound, because outbound is a volume game. So like, if you don't want to wait 4 weeks, you want to only wait 2 weeks, you could technically do it. I still recommend 4 welike, but if, let's say you're a manager or you're a rep and you really want to get after it, spend 2 weeks outbounding religiously from the hours you set. So as an example, from like 8 a.m. to like 7 p.m., like no breaks, just outbound religiously for those 2 weeks, 7 days a week, and you'll easily be able to tell based on your data when you should be working, why you should be working, how much you should be working, what you should be doing at what times during the day. Okay, now here are the rules. Do not dial more than 4 times in a day. So you're not going to dial a lead more than 4 times in a day, because that's going to fuck up your data. If you're dialing each lead like 8 times in a day, that's ridiculous. We can't track the pickup rate. Now, if I'm dialing the same lead 2 to 3 times in a day, which you can do through different dialing systems, what I want to figure out is, let's say I realize that I had this list of 100 leads, but most of them picked up at from 2 to 3 p.m. And that's, based on the market I serve and the avatar I sell to, that's the best pickup rate. Then I'm going to block that out as a closer or setter for outbound. Okay. First thing. Second thing is stop calling at 8 p.m. local time. Do not call people after 8 p.m. It is stupid. It is inappropriate. It is ridiculous. It's not proper. Okay. And it's going to affect the reputation of your company if you're calling people after 8 p.m. After 8 p.m., it's family time. It's for time for people to do whatever they want to do, not talk to a salesperson. Third rule, start no earlier than 8 a.m., okay? This is something that does matter. Before 8 a.m., man, people are getting up. Most people aren't awake by 8 a.m. usually, but if they are, it's breakfast time, it's gym time, it's family time, it's getting my kids to school time. It is not time for them to speak to a salesperson, and you're probably going to have a high hang-up ratio. So when I was selling in PST, which is majority of my career, right? I had moved to like Arizona, so it was MST, but I still scheduled my diary in PST. I operate on PST. Is I would start my day at 6 a.m. selling people, and most of my bookings, both inbound and outbound, were from EST, right? So it was like 9 a.m. their time. Okay. If they ask to be on the do not call list, yes, of course, and apply that to their profile in the CRM. It is illegal to call somebody that says they do not want to be called. Okay. And the point is, for most people, it's like, well, who cares? They're not going to sue me. It's like, yeah, but you do it enough, you might get sued. It's not worth it. Just don't. Okay. But you should also track that and send that to your marketing department, which means like if you're dialing and like 30% of your leads are saying, don't ever call me, it's either a skill set issue, which means you suck and you're triggering a lot of resistance, or it's a marketing issue. And you should probably tell the marketing department like, hey man, most of these people don't like when I call them. And then your marketing department needs to go, what the fuck are we doing? Okay. So this is where data goes to a deep level where you can start giving good feedback to other people in your company to help the company grow. Okay. Next rule, don't be a dick to people. Okay. Whether outbounding is one of those rare things where you're going to get a lot of rejection because it's fucking outbound. And so I'll give you an example. If a chef says, I don't like cooking, or I'm a chef, but I don't like cutting vegetables, we would all look at that and laugh because that's your job as a chef. If a firefighter says, I don't like fire, like that would make no sense. Outbound, if you're somebody that's going to do outbound as a setter or a closer, and this is why if you run an offer or you own a company, you have to give an incentive for outbound. You have to pay higher commission because you're automatically going to get more rejection in outbound rather than inbound. And outbound is difficult. It's not an easy task or an easy, day-to-day routine. So you should be getting paid more on that. And if you're somebody that makes a lot of money through outbound and there's no incentive in your company, don't demand, but ask your owner or your manager, like, hey, dude, I'm making this amount of money on outbound. I'd love to get 2 to 3% extra commission or whatever the case might be. But you can't be a dick to people on outbound. Okay. You're going to get more rejection. So if you close at 30% as a closer, don't expect to have, a 30% conversion on outbound where 10 people pick up and you'll book 3. I think that's a healthy ratio. The healthy ratio to me, outbound wise, 20 to 30% of your leads you should book. So if 10 people pick up, you should book 20 to 30. Another 20 to 30, you should be pipelining. They should be in follow-ups, right? Because you need to nurture them more, and then you should book them later on. The good thing about doing outbound as a closer is you have control. So even if inbound goes down, you have the skill set of outbound, which means you're not reliant on just the company sourcing you inbound leads, which at the end of the day makes you more money. If I just make money through inbound, what happens if that goes down? Which usually, if you're somebody that's been in sales for long enough or you want to get into sales, it does happen. Next thing, do not dial on Sundays. This is something that's a rule for most offers, but it's not like, yes, like you cannot dial on Sunday. It's one of those things where some people, sometimes the pickup rate is higher on Sunday, but you have to remember, usually Sunday's family time, so not many people want to talk to somebody. So I would test this out over 2 weeks to see if Sunday is productive. It probably isn't, but test it out. Okay. On Saturdays, do not call earlier than 9 a.m., no later than 6 p.m. It's Saturday, it's the weekend, most people take time off. If you're a manager, you should not let your sales team be dialing before this or after this. If you're a rep, don't worry about, take inbounds from that time or do training or go to the gym, but don't dial people. It's not productive. Rotate your outbound number every 50 to 60 dials. Most people suck at this, okay? Every 50 to 60 dials, maybe 80, you need to be rotating your outbound number because it's going to get flagged as spam. Now, the good thing is there's certain softwares out there, like the CEO of my company or our head chairman of our company, not CEO. His name is Matt Ryder. Okay. He owns a really cool company. I'll put his information in the description below, called dialer.io, where it's actually a really cool dialing system that gets on average 20% pick rate. It's really cool. So there are dialing systems out there that'll automatically rotate the number. But if you use like close.io, GHL, any of those kind of common CRMs, you have to tell the salesperson to like go rotate the number and then continue dialing. So the rule should be every $80, change the number, continue dialing. That way it doesn't come across as spam. Okay. So just to clarify, if you track what you're going to do at what times in the day, if you really track this consistently over 2 to 4 weeks, your mindset as a rep will go from I need to work hard to now I know how to work smart and hard. And here's the key for all of you. Working hard is something you should do, and you probably are currently doing it actively. But working smart is not something that, one, we're taught how to do, but two, we intentionally think about. If you're going to make big numbers as a rep, and I'm talking like 250, 150, half a million, a million, whatever the numbers are, right? As you make more money, hate to break it to you, it gets harder. It doesn't get easier as you make more money. But what it forces you to do when I say it gets harder is it forces you to intentionally think about your problems and find ways to make them better. And so if you genuinely, whether you're a salesperson or a manager or an owner, you track this data on an hour to hour basis, you frankly know, one, when should your sales team or when should you as rep be working? But two, you know what to do with the other hours of the day. If you have low profit margins in your company, and let's say you're the owner or the manager of your company, and the ROAS, right, the ROI on your ads is shit, then your team probably has to do outbound. But I don't know when they should be doing it, because if they do outbound, our revenue will go down. That's not true. That's like somebody saying, if I eat more carbs, I won't lose fat. It's like carbs don't make you fat. Eating like shit makes you fat. And so if you want to know how to do outbound, and let's say you're a company and you're fully reliant on inbound and everybody's stacked with inbound calls, or we don't know when they should be doing outbound, you got to be able to figure out as a manager or as a rep, even when of what part of the day should I do outbound? What part of the day should I do inbound? What part of the day should I do my follow-ups? But you're only going to know that if you know hour to hour what's the most productive. The same way I know at what hour as a bodybuilder when I should be eating, when I shouldn't be eating, when I should be working out, when I should do my cardio. Bodybuilders know exactly what they have to do day to day, how many meals, when they should be eating them in order to be ready on competition day at 4% body fat. As a salesperson, you got to know what times of the day you're doing what in order to not only maximize efficiency, but to keep yourself sane. Because if your way of making more money is I need to work more or I need to work harder, that doesn't give yourself any direction. That's just optimism. And optimism is not a bad thing, but optimism to many degrees is retarded because there's no way to track it or know if it's working or if it's not. And so I think this is like the difference between managers or reps that cap versus managers and reps that are able to grow while being happy and sane and enjoying their job. The number one issue in the sales space is the fact that most salespeople don't actually like selling. That's just like, if I was to boil it down to one thing, most salespeople don't like selling because this feels like a job. And it is a hard job, emotionally draining job. But if I can figure out what I have to be doing during the day and I can figure out when I sell, I can improve my skill set, but then I can also figure out from a diary management standpoint when I should be doing what, it sort of becomes a chess game. It's no longer a if, it's a when. Okay. So if you're a sales rep and you want to be able to implement this in your day to day, down below, there's going to be a link where you can download this free resource, take this document, create a copy of it, use it for yourself. If you're a manager and you want to use this for your team, go ahead and do it. My only expectation is if you download it, please use it and track it again over 4 weeks. Don't track it over 1 week and make any decisions. Track it over the course of 2 to 4 weeks to really get the data you need. Down below, there'll be a free link for you to download it. If you want to know more about getting a better dialing system in place, I'll leave a link down below for Matt's dialing software that you guys can use. Besides that, subscribe, use this video, comment down below what your biggest takeaway was and how you plan on making sure that this year you make the most out of your diary.